Just a little change of scenery for this month's video. I have other people in my house. They won't let me film in my usual spot. Well, welcome back to another month's recap of reading. This past month was a lot slower because life got really busy. If you're one of my subscribers on Instagram, you've known this for months already, but I guess the beans are now being spilled for everybody else. I am in college for an associate's degree. I'm going back to school for a second degree in radiologic technology. So I'm pretty excited about it, but at the same time, it's taking a lot of my time. And so I was only really able to listen to audiobooks this month. And since audiobooks, because I get them through my library, they're like the only means that I have to keep up with like the traditional published authors, because all of my like physical books are independent authors. That's how I try to keep balance, because I want to continue reading stuff that I know that I'm going to like, but at the same time supporting in the independent authors. Because I did try for like a whole month straight just only reading the independent authors, and I put myself in a little bit of a reading slump because there were a lot of really good ones, but then at the same time there were quite a few that I could tell would have really benefited from having access to the editors that a lot of traditionally published authors have. And so it kind of like, it made me not want to read for a while. So that is why this month I sadly was only able to read 2 books from independent authors. Well, technically one of them I did not finish, but I did read the other one. And the rest of them are all popular authors. So I'm sorry to my independent friends. Let's get into it. Cersei Syndrome. So this is an independent author, follows the story of a wizard, a hexa is the term specifically, who are basically like gods. They are incredibly powerful and they know how to, well, at least this particular hexa knows how to create planets and create life forms, and also allows for evolution. I really enjoyed the magic that was described in this book. It was absolutely incredible with the physics and the biology and the science that was tied in with it for other supernatural creatures as well, like vampires, fairies, elves. So I said maybe in my short version on recommending this book because I found the magic system to be incredibly fascinating, but it needed another maybe 3 or 4 rounds with an editor. As it is right now, there's not like a through plot point. Like in most stories, you have a beginning, middle, end, and they all are connected to each other and progress. And then you have like these little things that happen in between, but they all contribute to the big overarching theme. I had a hard time finding it in this one. Muriel, who's our main character, this hexa, who's incredibly powerful, basically just follows around her day to day and how she uses her powers and some of the things that she faces. The redeeming quality of it was how intricate the magic system was. And so that's why I gave this one a maybe. I need to go to the chiropractor, my back hurts.
My hip!
Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. You always know what you're gonna get with a Christie. This is only the second book that I read, and it is number 8, what was it? This is number 18 in her Hero series. So they're kind of like standalone, so it was okay. But I hadn't read Murder on the Orient Express, even though I've seen the film, and I'm familiar with the whole plot of Murder of the Orient Express. So there was like some spoilers for that because he referenced it. So silly me starting with book 18. It was available at my library and I was like, oh look, Agatha Christie, we're just gonna read it. I didn't think it would be possible to make murder mystery cozy, but Agatha Christie does that because you know what you're gonna get. It's all neatly wrapped up at the end with the confessions, and it's very well crafted. You see all of the evidence at the beginning of the novel, but you're still trying to piece it all together, and then it just closes up nicely. She's just so good. So with this one, I was able to figure out the culprit about 2/3 of the way through. It became fairly obvious to me. I still liked it, so this is one I'd recommend. This month was really big Taylor Jenkins read for me. I read 2 more of her novels, Daisy Jones and the Six and Atmosphere. I read Atmosphere first because a friend of mine who read it was obsessed with it and was just like, you have to read it. I just really love how Taylor Jenkins Reid writes. Her writing style is just one that I feel like I can gel with. I think she's fantastic. However, with Atmosphere, I was expecting a lot more space, but I guess it was advertised as a love story, so I'm not too mad about it because you kind of get what was advertised. But the love story was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. That's just the sci-fi in me talking. I'm currently reading Project Hail Mary right now, so I'm getting my space fix. It's all good. And then Daisy Jones and the Six, I listened to the audiobook of it, and I highly recommend if you're gonna do Daisy Jones and the Six. I know there's a series out right now. Is it on Apple TV? I don't know what it's on. I would listen to it because the actors, the voice actors, killed it. They knocked it out of the park. It literally felt like I was listening to a documentary, you know, where they interview a bunch of people and they keep it on the same timeline. So it was, that book is written that way, but I felt like I got so much more out of it because I listened to it and I listened to the performative aspect of these voice actors, that it was much more engaging. I still stand by my opinion that The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is her best work. So because I read that one first, maybe I'm a little bit too critical on these other two. She's still great, and I recommend anything that she writes. At least those three things that I have read were awesome. The Poppy War, I was a little disappointed, I'm not gonna lie. This one's a maybe because I do feel like it was fairly well written. And I have, fun fact, I lived in China for collectively about 3 years. And I know a little bit about the history, and spoiler alert, there's a lot of history in China. So I'm not saying that I'm an expert in any way, shape or form, but I loved all the Chinese culture that was in this. It kind of brought me back to when I lived there, and I loved the people there. And the way that it was written drew attention, I felt, to like the Sino-Japanese War that happened, was it like the 1930s, 1940s? The world building was incredibly lazy, in my opinion, because it felt like she just took China and Japan and then fantasized it, like made it more supernatural. But then again, a lot of popular authors do that. Sarah J. Maas did that with her Agatha series. She basically just took the UK and England and Ireland, and a lot of people, we're not going to get into that. There was some controversy with that. So this is split into 3 different parts. The first part is the training. So Rin is a young girl. She's about 14 when we meet her in this book. She doesn't want to get married, so she studies ridiculously hard. She's brilliant, and she winds up getting into the top school and continues her training there. And then in the second part, they're at war. And the second part of the book was my favorite, just with how it was written and the visuals with the war. And R.F. Kuang did not hold back at all with the brutality that people do during war. So you get that both sides see each other as not human, and that is the problem, right? Is when you don't see another individual as human, you see them as less than, then you can justify doing terrible, terrible things. And then the third part of the book is kind of just like the culmination, is where Rin turns into more of like an anti-hero based on all of her experiences from like the second part of the book. I didn't care for the third part because I felt like this love story that she tried to write between Rin and Altair was just, it didn't go deep enough for me. Like there wasn't enough time spent between to see it grow at all. It was just like, oh yeah, by the way, I love this guy. Why? So I felt like how it ended was not justified. It just kind of felt like it was slapped there. So that's why this one is a maybe. I will try to continue this series because usually they get better. And I do like an anti-hero story. They're very interesting. This is definitely where you get morally gray, and actually morally gray, not just, you know, for the romantic-y kind of thing. I was like, he's morally gray. No, he's just misunderstood. This is actually morally gray. I'll let you know what I think as I continue the series. So Lexenbury and the Mother Moons is another independent author. This one I did not finish. I got about part of the way through, but the writing style was not one that I personally cared for. So that's why I decided to move on rather than trying to push through it, because usually when I try to push through, I put myself into a reading slump, and I hate reading for a little bit, and I don't want to do that. So this one's like a sci-fi fantasy. It takes place on another planet, and there are 13 moons that orbit, that's the word, science. I was just talking about how much I like space and science, and yet I'm an idiot, so here we go. The magic was pretty cool. In order to gain magic, you have to partake, you have to physically eat of fruit from specific trees, and these specific trees then grant you the magic ability pertaining to the tree. But again, I didn't finish it all the way, so I don't know how it ends. I don't know if it improved because I gave up. I'm sorry.
Quitter!
Because just like with Cersei Syndrome, it needed some more time with an editor. I felt like it jumped around a bit too much, and it was pretty jarring. Just these time jumps, just suddenly we were years ahead in the future, and I got lost, and I was like, where are we? I'm one of those readers that if I just see words on the page rather than being transported into this world, I lose interest pretty fast, and that was a problem that I had with this one. So again, I don't think that I necessarily was the right reader, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would gel with this. In fact, some of the other reviews on Goodreads are very positive, so it might just be my own little experience. So that's why I said no to recommending this as myself personally, because I didn't finish it. I couldn't push through it. I'm sorry, Ryan. Glow of the Everflame. This is book 2 in the Kindred's Curse series. I read book 1 last month, and I liked it because it was one of those callbacks to the types of books that got me back into reading, like the Throne of Glass series got me back into reading back in 2011 after not reading for years. And so, you know, there was like that bit of nostalgia, but I had issues with the main character, and then those issues just exacerbated into book 2 and became even worse. So I will not be finishing this series. There was no character development for our main character, Diem. None. She was exactly the same as she was in book 1. And then there's just no arc. And it felt like all these other characters I liked better because it felt like they had depth and reasoning and a brain. Like they could think and make informed decisions. That's because the entire book is written in Diem's point of view, and she is the most aggravating character ever. So yeah, it was exhausting and frustrating, that entire book. This one is another one that I would not recommend. Sorry, Penn. No. True Biz by Sara Novic. This was the book club book from my book club. I really enjoyed the informative part of the book. I felt like the narrative part of the book was a little bit lackluster. So that's why this one was a maybe, because the prose wasn't necessarily my favorite. The characters, like the one of the teachers, I need to remember these characters. The February's character didn't need to be in there at all. We could have had more development on just like Charlie, and the same point could have got across. And I also wanted to know more about Elliot. This poor kid, his backstory was maybe a paragraph, and his backstory was the most heartbreaking. And I wanted more of that, and it was just abrupt. And then the ending was also not my favorite. It just ended. But to be sure, I feel like this book is a valuable read, especially for people who are not part of the deaf community, just to get an insight into how things are and how people are treated just because they are deaf. So I really liked that part of the book, that just shone a light on the importance of accessibility. Just because somebody is a little bit different than you doesn't mean that they are less than you, right? Like somebody who is deaf, is it actually considered a disability since they know how to communicate? It's not, but people would consider it a disability because it's a minority, right? And so I found that part to be incredibly fascinating. I personally think that all schools should be offering ASL. ASL I think would be amazing. And if it became the norm just to know ASL, just think of how inclusive that would be. So that was a maybe. I still really liked it. And then finally, Tender is the Flesh. I said no, I would not recommend this book because this book made me physically ill. I have never read a book before that I felt sick to my stomach and I had to put it down, walk away, take some deep breaths, and then come back and finish it. So I finished the book. I didn't DNF it because the subject matter was so fascinating, and I felt like it was important to go through the discomfort and to grasp the theme of this book. But it's disgusting. An interview with this author where she was talking about how she believes that humans cannibalize each other in a way, and she just made it literal and kind of showcased how that could be, right? Yeah, cannibalism, right? Yep. Incredibly disturbing, incredibly gross, and fascinating, and brilliant. I would not recommend. And that ending, I don't want to give it away, but that ending, this is set in a future where there is a virus that infects animals, and if humans eat the animals, humans get this disease and die, and there's no cure for it. So what do they do instead? They breed livestock humans for consumption. Ugh. The part that made me put this down, because I literally, stomach was roiling with disgust and I felt like I was going to vomit, not gonna lie, was the apathetic way the processing of the meat was described. Like the whole thing from beginning to end. The whole process was so detailed, but it was so detached. And that was the chilling part. And that's why I said it was brilliant writing and masterful writing, I thought, in my opinion, was the way that she could make you feel just like this narrator was just like, and this is how this happens. And it's just brutal. So I'd recommend it to you if you dare. That's what I read for July. What did you guys read? Let me know in the comments. I'd be excited to discuss, or maybe you have read any of these books that I've read and we can further have a discussion, because I like discussing books. I like book clubs. In fact, I'm planning on putting a Patreon together to do a book club with you guys, like picking a monthly book out of my independent author list that we can discuss, so that we can, support an independent author. But I don't know how Patreon works, so I still need to look into how to do all that. But anyway, gonna continue reading here into August. I have a lot more independent novels that I get into. I was pretty slow with only 2 independent novels this month, and I apologize to all you indie authors who have sent me books. I really do want to try to get to them as quickly as possible, but also make sure that I'm spending enough time really absorbing the material that you've written, because you deserve to be seen. And so I'll continue trying to showcase your books, at least the covers, in some of my skits and whatnot, even if I haven't read them yet, just to, let people take a gander and see if maybe they want to check out your book. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Happy reading.